Angie and the Fairies. Angie grew up hearing stories about fairies. The townsfolk would whisper and point over yonder to their hideaway up on the top of the mountain. She thought, if they exist, why can't I meet them? Angie was curious and so full of wonder. One summer day, the adventure began when Angie convinced her friends, Andy and Anne. Thrilled with excitement and packed for the venture, they took to the hills in search of the fairies. They hadn't gone far when suddenly appeared a bony little dog that wanted to join them. He looked like a street dog surrounded by fleas. He smelled like he hadn't been bathed in years. Andy got mad. Anne fretted about fleas, but Angie drew near and started to pet him. Maybe he's homeless. Why not let him join us? Her friends didn't like the idea at all, but couldn't find words to argue with Angie. The three friends walked upwards, higher and higher, while the dog tagged along, panting and moaning. The dog bothered Andy, who was already exhausted, and Anne began to doubt the story of the fairies. Soon, Andy grew angry and scowled at the dog, while Anne insisted on sending him back. But Angie stood firm and said to her friends, "We can't leave him now. Let's keep going." After a while, they stopped for some lunch. The little bony dog pleaded with Anne for his meal. "Not on your life, you scrawny little mutt." Angie felt sorry and offered her food, and the dog ate it up as fast as he could. When the picnic was over, Anne began to yawn, while Andy stretched out and started to snore. But Angie was anxious and wondered out loud, what if the fairies are really at the peak? The dog looked at Angie and suddenly barked, as if he were saying, "Let's run to the top." Both took to their heels and raced up the path. They ran all the way and didn't look back. Tired and exhausted, Angie felt she would faint. But a beautiful sight enchanted her with delight. The air felt sweet and the light was sublime. And suddenly, guess what? She saw something flying, with iridescent wings and a mischievous smile. Could this be a fairy? Angie thought. It was a fairy indeed, and it fluttered closer and closer, and finally landed on the tip of her finger. She whispered a message so sweet and tender. "Come with me and see the world of fairies." Then the fairy looked down and spotted the dog. But dogs can't see the world of the fairies. Angie thought for a moment, then answered the fairy, "I think I will have to pass this chance over." She looked in the eyes of her loyal dog friend and knew her decision, though hard, was right. What happened next is hard to imagine. It seemed like a curtain was suddenly drawn. Right before her eyes, she experienced a wonder. Her bony little friend turned into a fairy. Then thousands of fairies pranced through the air, and Angie was bathed by a magical glow. Everything seemed lighter and brighter and whiter. Perhaps she too was becoming a fairy. For hours on end, she danced with the fairies and revelled in the wonders of their mystical realm. Suddenly, as if waking from an incredible dream, the curtain fell on this magical scene. Gone were the fairies. They all disappeared. Just the trees and flowers were all that remained. Then, as if carried by the wind, she raced the whole way down the hill and awoke her two friends, Andy and Anne. Oh, how to explain the wonders she'd seen? A stream of excitement filled her whole being. The three friends started the long climb down, while Angie shared her incredible tale. Andy and Anne could never have guessed the amazing wonders that they had missed. But more important than all, Angie now knew that by giving your love, all your dreams will come true.
To see fairyland, you must be pure of heart. It's only for those who are loyal and true. To see fairyland, you must be pure of heart. Love is the only key to this magical